For a long time, aliens have kept their criminals locked up in human bodies, but humans are unaware. In the year 1380, a secret gang of masked warriors is chasing a woman behaving oddly when suddenly, a crack in the sky opens up and a car comes through. From this car, two robots come out, Thunder and Guard, who are here to capture the alien inside this woman since their job is to protect Earth from any aliens that manage to escape their hosts. Guard extracts the alien successfully with the help of his glowing blade, but the woman dies in the process, leaving behind her baby daughter. Afterward, the pair returns to 2012, and Guard puts away the alien in the special cell at his home with the others he's caught so far. Then, he discovers Thunder has brought back the baby girl with him. Now Guard has no choice but to raise the baby while waiting for the next prisoner convoy, which will arrive in 10 years. In 1391, magician Muriok is using his powers to catch criminals from wanted posters and get the bounty money. Today's thieves are tough opponents, but Muriok has many tricks in his sleeve, including summoning the kitties from his fan that can become warrior catmen. The thieves are successfully caught and handed to the authorities, and after getting paid, Muriok immediately begins looking at the new listings to choose his next objective. Among all the posters there's a huge payment for an exotic dagger, and seeing the drawing makes Muriok have weird flashbacks of a man in the forest and a girl at the beach. He decides to take the job anyway, meaning his next stop is the local prison, where prisoner Dong Ai may have some information. Muriok pretends to be Dong Ai's son to be allowed to visit him, and he uses his powers to steal the cell key. Afterward, he goes to see Dong Ai and offers the key in exchange for some clues. This is how Muriok learns that the blade came up in a fishing net some months ago, and the fisherman sold it to a former magistrate who nowadays runs an inn in the city. Muriok and his catmen go to the city, and while looking for the inn, they're curious about the presence of Suitor because of his weird clothes. Once they enter the inn, Muriok meets Hyan Gam, the former magistrate who doesn't like the questions Muriok is asking and uses his own powers to easily freeze him in place. Afterward, Hyan Gam goes upstairs to meet Suitor, who claims to know what the blade is. With the help of his catmen, Muriok goes upstairs too and finds Hyan Gam being attacked by Suitor with the blade, which falls to the floor after Hyan Gam takes it off his body. Dong Ai is now in the inn too, and he grabs the blade as soon as he sees it drop. Then he runs away as Suitor begins jazzing him, while Muriok checks on Hyan Gam, who tells him not to awaken. Muriok notices Hyan Gam had a bounty listing for Suitor and decides to go after him, but his attacks don't really hurt him. Suitor doesn't even need his tentacles, he just punches Muriok against a wall until he passes out. Later, the catmen come to rescue Muriok, and when they look through the hole in the wall, they find a spaceship stuck in the river, which must have resurfaced because of the drought. A noise among the trees indicates someone is nearby, but when they throw a torch at them, they only get to see a lady in red running away. In 2022, Guard has to keep on going to meetings with the school teachers because the now 10-year-old Yian gets in trouble all the time telling stories about aliens and robots, but luckily nobody believes her. It seems Yian still has a few memories from when she was younger, and the mind-altering technique they usually use on civilians isn't working well on her. Another annoyance about having to go to school is that Guard keeps being hit on by Ka, the aunt of Yian's best friend Min's son, but Guard ignores her. Once Yian's classes are done, Guard drives her home, and she takes the chance to hide a second phone she's bought inside a compartment in the seats. After they arrive, Yian gets off the car, but thanks to the second phone, she gets to listen to Guard discuss the convoy that will arrive the next day and will need 107 humans for implantation. At 9 p.m., Guard leaves like he does every night, and Yian goes back to the car to recover her phone. She ends up accidentally opening the compartment and finding the alien technology inside the car, causing Thunder to reveal himself to stop her from touching it. Now Yian is asking questions, so Thunder explains about the aliens and the fact Yuan came from the past. At that moment, a new message arrives, indicating that the chosen place for the next implantation will be a hospital. The next day, Yian goes to that hospital and records everything in case her memories are deleted later. While recording, she bumps against police officer Du Seok, who asks her to be more careful. At that moment, a giant spaceship appears in the sky, and a strange stone is dropped in the middle of the hospital. This stone grows into a cocoon, which releases a bunch of tentacles that go after every human in the building to implant the new alien prisoners. Du Seok is implanted too, but Yian is spared, although Guard sees her running out of the hospital. He retrieves the stone while the spaceship flies away and everyone else continues with their lives as if nothing had happened. Back in 1391, Ryuk and the Catman are still looking for Suitor and eventually find the old shack he had been staying at. There, they find a note from a temple asking him to steal the blade and a painting on the wall that shows the spaceship from the river, a bunch of aliens, and thunder. Meanwhile, the temple Suitor worked for turns out to be the headquarters of the Masked Warriors, and today they're being visited by mages Huxiel and Chung Woon. They've brought their magical items to show the leader Jia Jiang, who hasn't left the temple since he arrived 10 years ago and isn't really interested in trinkets. What Jia Jiang wants is the glowing blade, and he hires the mages to get it back. In the city, Ryuk gets some information about a noble family that bought the blade, so he infiltrates the family wedding by capturing the groom and taking his clothes. Ryuk goes through the ceremony pretending to be the groom, and when he's finally alone with the bride, he thinks she looks familiar, not realizing she's the Red Lady from that night in the river, and she's also pretending to be the bride. Ryuk finds a gun under her skirt and doesn't understand what it is, but the lady tells him not to worry and pours some tea. After taking a sip, Ryuk excuses himself and goes outside, where his catmen inform him they heard the blade is in the family storehouse. Ryuk enters the storehouse and begins feeling unwell, and after hiding, he sees Red Lady enter the room too, because she's also looking for the blade. At that moment, the mages arrive at the house, also demanding to see the contents of the storehouse and using their magic to order the family leader to bring the blade to them. Ryuk drags his sick body back to the room and finds Red Lady hiding from the mages, which makes him realize she's fake and that she puts something in his tea that is making it hard to move. After telling Ryuk he can just sleep the effects off, Red Lady goes outside and begins fighting the Masked Warriors with a combination of martial arts and gunfire. When the family leader brings the blade, Red Lady takes it for herself before going against the mages, who use a special invisibility cloak to attack her. However, this isn't enough to trick her, and Red Lady manages to defeat them by cutting them with the blade before shooting Huxiel in the arm and hurting Chung Woon's ears with the sound of the gunfire. Then Red Lady tries to run away with the blade, only to be knocked out by the Masked Warriors that sneak attack her. They take her and the blade away, but they drop the gun in the process. Minutes later, the Catmen rescue Ryuk and take him away too, picking up the gun on their way out. In 2022, Yeon goes to stay with Min's son, showing her the videos she took at the hospital, while Ka overhears. Guard manages to find her location anyway, but not wanting to deal with the ants flirting, he sends Thunder to retrieve Yeon instead. As soon as they get home, Yeon demands answers, so Thunder explains they do the implantation for the sake of keeping peace in the universe. The aliens can only leave the human bodies for 5 minutes, otherwise, Earth's atmosphere will kill them. Yeon protests against humans being used in prisons without their consent, but she's ignored. When night falls, Yeon can't sleep, causing her to go to stay in the back of the car because Thunder's presence is comforting. The next day, a new unexpected spaceship is approaching Earth. Do Seok is trying to do his job, but he keeps feeling dizzy and shoots a criminal that wasn't armed, getting him into trouble at the station. The criminal gets to walk away, but Do Seok overhears some of his co-workers saying they'll buy from him later, so Do Seok shows up at the illegal exchange and kills them all. It seems he isn't in his right mind because hours later, he wakes up in his tub with the victim's bloody clothes in his hands without understanding. At that moment, the spaceship gets close enough for Thunder to detect it, so he begins ringing the alarm. Right after it, he gets another important signal, indicating that the alien in Do Seok has woken up. Guard tries to get Yeon out of the car, but she refuses to leave, and since the spaceship is already landing on Earth, Guard has no time to argue. Thus he takes off, transforming the car into a spaceship of his own with Yeon still inside. Downtown, a red alien gets off the ship and finds Do Seok, chasing him into an elevator as it explains the leader of the rebellion, who destroyed Guard's planet, is implanted in Do Seok's mind, and he wants to free him. When Guard arrives, he transforms into armor mode and goes after this alien, unaware that Yeon is taking the chance to steal the gun he left behind. The fight between Guard and the alien is fierce, and they end up going through the elevator floor, where the alien takes advantage of his tentacles to catch Guard and remove the glowing blade from his leg before dropping him to the floor. While Thunder rescues Guard, the alien returns to its spaceship to go after Do Seok, who is escaping in his police car and tries to hide in a parking lot. Suddenly, the spaceship crashes into the parking lot and begins chasing the police car throughout throughout the city, so Guard transforms his car into a ship again and goes after it. Both spaceships begin shooting each other, and Thunder's analysis reveals that the bright red circle in the middle of the enemy's ship is its weak point. Because the city is taking too much damage from the fight, Guard flies up, but the enemy shoots him and makes him fall into the sea before going after Dusiok again. Once it finally hits the police car, the alien lands and comes out with the blade in hand, throwing it at Dusiok before Guard manages to come back to continue the fight. However, since the blade is in the process of awakening the leader, the red alien's mission is done, and he grabs Guard with its tentacles before self-destroying. The alien leader, known as the Controller, leaves Dusiok's body and takes the blade into the spaceship. Thunder leaves Yian in the car while he goes to check on Guard, trying to recharge him with some of his own energy. There isn't much he can give him without dying himself, so once he awakens, Guard sends him to check on the situation. Thunder enters the spaceship and discovers the red alien has brought the Hava with him, a substance that can change Earth's atmosphere permanently and would allow the alien criminals to roam freely without their human bodies. It would also kill all human life. Guard uses the little energy he's got to enter the spaceship and fight the Controller, but the alien just pushes him away before leaving the ship as the Hava begins floating around the city. At least the Controller left the blade behind, which Guard uses to try to stop the Hava system. Meanwhile, Thunder goes to protect Yian after she was seen by the Controller, who has returned to Dusiok's body. Releasing a tentacle, Dusiok triggers the first Hava, which creates a red fog that kills all the humans that it touches. After opening the road to allow people to escape, Thunder sends Yian away in the car before running back to go after the Controller, while Guard finally seals the Hava inside the ship again. Seeing the red fog take over the city is a vivid memory that has stayed with Yian since it happened, and now it's revealed she's dreaming about it in 1391 because the Red Lady is her all grown up. She arrived in this era 10 years ago inside the alien ship, and Jiajang came with her. Now, she wakes up to find herself in the temple, trapped inside a magic prison. Suter and Jiajang discuss the matter of needing to find the Controller, who should be inside one of the 4 people that saw them arrive 10 years ago. It wasn't Hien Gam, because he died to the blade instead of awakening. And it can't be the mages either, because the blade cut them too and nothing happened, so now they need to find the 4th, who happens to be Dong Ai. In the meantime, Muriuk wakes up after having those weird flashbacks again. He and the Catman attack some masked warriors they see on the road to steal their clothes and sneak inside the temple. Those clothes have important items in their pockets, so to keep their cover, the trio must hand them in. The mages get a special plant to treat Huxeal's bullet wound, and Jiajang gets a letter explaining that the spaceship has resurfaced in the river. At that moment, the blade starts glowing, yet Jiajang can't understand why. The mages are curious, but Jiajang doesn't need them anymore and tells them to leave after they're done eating. Since Muriuk is dressed as one of the servants, he's in charge of taking food to Yian, and he takes the chance to ask about her identity because she still looks so familiar to him. Yian refuses to talk, but she changes her mind when Muriuk promises to give her the gun back. She explains she and the blade came from the future, and when Muriuk doesn't believe her, she grabs him through the food door, causing him to burn his clothes against the magic wall. Scared, Muriuk gives her the gun and runs away. Unfortunately, Yian can't act because the food had been poisoned and she immediately passes out. The mages have been poisoned as well, but they use their magic to fight off the effects while trying to reach the antidote. At that moment, Muriuk appears behind them as the Catman lower him through the roof so he can steal the blade. The mages mention the antidote, asking for his help, but they're interrupted by the masked warriors bringing coffins to bury the mages. Muriuk fights them all off before taking one of the antidotes with him, realizing Yian ate the same thing as the mages. On his way out though, Jiajang hears him running and hits him with his tentacle. While Huxeal finally manages to grab the antidote with her mouth and share it with Chung Woon, the Catman pick Muriuk up and take him to the forest. However, he doesn't want to abandon Yian, so he runs back to the temple where the magic wall has gone down during the fight. Muriuk feeds the antidote to Yian, only to be found and stabbed by Jiajang again before he takes the blade back. Then, Yian and Muriuk are put inside coffins and Muriuk is thrown into the ocean. In 2022, the 2 aliens that would later become Suter and Jiajang awake thanks to the red fog and get in contact with the Controller. Meanwhile, news drones have managed to get inside the fog and are showing the aliens to the world, and at home, Guard knows he needs to go back there to stop them. First, though, he talks to Yian and finally confesses he killed her mother because of the alien she had inside. Now though, she needs to leave so he can do his job, and Yian makes sure to pack the gun she stole. While Thunder drives Yian to Min Sun's house, the controller in Du Seok's body and his two thugs come to Guard's home to take back the ship, but Guard isn't strong enough to stop them. At first, Thunder refuses to go back to help, but Yian changes his mind when she reminds him of the ship's weak spot. As soon as they get there, Thunder begins fighting the aliens, while Yian helps a weak Guard get into the car. Once everyone is back in the car with the knife, they drive away, only to see the aliens chasing them. Seeing no other option, Guard uses the blade to open a portal into the past, and the car passes through with the aliens, falling in 1381. Hyeon Gam, Dong-ai, and the mages see the car in the sky. However, there's a fifth person with the group that the aliens didn't know about, a very young Mu Ryuk. Once the car lands, Guard tries to fight Du Seok, only to get killed by his tentacles. Furious, Yian shoots Du Seok while the portal closes, and Du Seok pushes the car into the river, where it takes back its ship form, and the blade floats away from Yian's hands. While Du Seok tries to find a new body, young Mu Ryuk comes to the river and helps Yian out of the water. He also retrieves the bag with the gun, and this memory is remembered by Mu Ryuk inside the coffin, allowing him to escape because somehow he's still alive. At the temple, Yian's coffin is being buried, but she wakes up just in time to use her gun to escape. By shooting Ja Jang too, she manages to recover the blade before hiding. At that moment, the mages show up and begin fighting the aliens with all the tricks they have. Suitor ignores them and goes after Yian, stealing the blade, while the mages try to seal Ja Jang inside a vase. Suddenly, Mu Ryuk shows up and begins fighting Suitor, giving Yian the chance to escape. Her injuries make it hard to run, but Hyuk Seal can feel her pain, which means she's the lost baby of an old friend. The mage shares some medicine with Yian while the alien inside Suitor leaves the body and knocks out Mu Ryuk before going after Yian. Hyuk Seal fights Suitor, while Chung Woon keeps his powers on the vase, and when he wakes up, Mu Ryuk comes to help as well. Using one of the mage's many magical items, Yian shoots Suitor's human body, allowing her to recover the blade. Unfortunately, Chung Woon doesn't have enough power to hold the vase alone, and Ja Jang escapes. While Mu Ryuk finally finishes off Suitor, Ja Jang chases Yian, who makes him follow her to the river, and the two catmen go after them too. Before dying, Suitor tells Mu Ryuk there's something inside him. Suddenly, the flashbacks hit him again, and he finally remembers what happened the day he met Yian. He had heard a noise in the forest and went to check, only to bump into Du Seok. The controller took the chance to leave Du Seok's body and implant himself in the boy. Mu Ryuk passes out after remembering this, and the mages begin to wonder if they should kill him too. In 2022, Ka shows up at Guard's home and sees the car enter the portal before realizing they left a spaceship behind.